How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us on National Pre-Med Day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hi,
this year,
everyone.
this year we have the National Pre-Med Day, also doing PA stuff, and we've had a couple of really great interactions with questions and answers on PA. And I think you're going to really give us some important information on the top questions that students have about how to go forward on being a pre-PA student. Does that sound right?
Yep, I will.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, why don't you spend a little bit of a time introducing yourself to us and letting us know kind of your experiences with PA and what you do, and I think that'd be a great intro for you.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name's Rodeline Joseph. I am an emergency medicine physician assistant. I've been a PA for almost 5 years now, since August 2016. Absolutely love it. I love being a PA, and on top of that, I also love mentorship and building my platform dedicated to mentoring and helping pre-health and pre-PA students get into their respective programs. I also work with Dr. Ryan Gray, and I host a pre-PA eShadowing, and I absolutely love it every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm just basically here to discuss frequently asked questions. Of course, I get asked questions all the time by pre-PA students on, help with getting into PA school, how to get into PA school. And so I'll be sharing some of the most frequently asked questions that I've received via emails, eShadowing, and whatnot.
Awesome. So you've got some Q&A questions or some frequently asked questions that I think you're going to cover for us. Is that right?
Yep. I'm going to share my screen to open up my presentation.
Great.
All right, can you guys, let's see.
Yep, there it is.
Can you guys see it now?
Let me put it on there. There we go.
All right, is it in, should be in, I'm trying to get it in presentation mode. All righty, let's see. All right, I think this should be, I'm going to enter full screen. Okay, this should be better, I think. Sorry, give me 1 second.
No worries. Flexibility is important in medicine, right?
Trying to. Okay.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. Oh, okay, is that it? Yeah, that'll work.
Can you see? It should be in full presentation mode. I'm not sure why. Let's see. I'm not sure why it's not showing the actual. Okay, it's okay. Let me just go back.
No worries.
Okay. Alrighty. So
that'll work. Yeah, that'll work.
This is the top 10 frequently asked pre-PA questions. As I said, my name is Rodeline Joseph. I'm a physician assistant. So, and this is not in any particular order. It's just kind of questions that came off the top of my head and questions like, going through emails. So it's not like from most frequently asked to least. So it's just what I constantly hear. Okay, so one of the most frequently asked questions is the best way to get patient care experience. For a PA school, you need a certain amount of hands-on direct patient care hours. And this doesn't mean that one is more important than the other, or that if you don't have experience in this, in any of these that you're not going to get into PA school, or that it doesn't count as patient care experience. But patient care experience is basically hands-on experience where you're directly involved in the care team for that patient. So it can include being a CNA, medical assistant, patient care technician, EMT or paramedic, LPN or RN, a home health aide, EKG tech. And I put scribe because I actually really like scribes, but not a lot of schools recognize them as patient care hours. Well, certain schools don't. I'm not going to say not a lot. Some schools do, some schools don't, because you're not like directly involved. But I feel like you gain so much from being a scribe, and I think it's a great way to get experience. So if the school does, I would first check with the school that you're interested in. But if they do, then that's great, because I think it's like one of the best ways to get experience, especially preparing you for a PA school. And that doing notes. So yeah. All right, number 2. How many patient care hours are considered competitive? I would say at least, and this is just from speaking with different admissions people and schools, they typically want at least 2,000 hours. Of course, students tend to have more than that and may have a little bit less, but competitive is at least 2,000 hours of hands-on direct experience. This is not experience from shadowing or from indirect or from volunteer work, but this is what I spoke about in the first slide about directly involved in the patient care. And that's equivalent to 1 year of full-time work. So if you work 40 hours a week for 52 weeks, then that's a little over 2,000 hours. All right. How do I find a PA to shadow in COVID era? So of course we have the pre-med and pre-PA eShadowing, which has been great, but a lot of students also want to shadow in person, especially to meet a PA to eventually get a letter of recommendation from. And I know it's really hard during COVID. Hospitals are not accepting students at this time. Hopefully it should get better as the world starts to open back up and more people are vaccinated. But for the meantime, I say to basically utilize your network, especially social media and pre-health clubs that you're involved with. Contact your friends. I'm sure you guys know other friends that are pre-med or pre-PA. You're probably in health clubs, pre-health clubs, get involved with those. And as I said, social media, go on Facebook groups, post to Facebook groups. There's a ton of pre-PA and PA Facebook groups. Reach out to people on there. And then I personally like LinkedIn because back in the day when I was applying to PA school, this was in 2013, I literally had to go through the phone book. I utilized the phone book, called like every doctor's office in my area. I feel like I probably called 20 or 30 offices until like someone accepted me. And I feel like now in the world of social media, like LinkedIn and like Facebook is like the next best thing, or basically equivalent to the phone book because and it allows you to basically better put yourself out there and get recognized, because you can create your profile, upload your resume, make it look super professional to where they'll see your profile and be like, okay, yeah, we can take this person on. So of course, don't just randomly email or reach out to a bunch of people, but follow them, like their posts, get to, fill them out a little bit, and then send out a warm introduction and see if they can take you. And I should say that, message as many people as you can, remain persistent, and don't give up. You'll be able to find somebody eventually to shadow and eventually get a letter of recommendation from. Alrighty. Number 4, how to decide PA versus NP versus MD. And this is for a lot of students that are kind of new to the PA field, or learning, trying to figure out if PA is for them or if it's another track within the medical field. Especially, I hear NP versus MD, and that's all based on doing your research. But I think most importantly, it's also your personality, the type of life you want, your family, any family situations you may have, finances, student loans, if you don't want to incur a lot of debt, or if you don't want if you want to only be in school for a certain amount of time, or if you want to prefer to learn one way versus the other, or if you want more autonomy. All of this is basically your personality. And if you're in undergrad and you're not sure, you're like 19, 20 years old, don't bother yourself. Don't like stress out, because you'll figure it out. Like you'll, do research, get involved with, like I said, hub clubs, and volunteer and put yourself out there to be in the medical field more, so you can learn more about yourself and what you want and the type of provider that you want to be. So it'll definitely come to you, and whichever you choose, they're all great. All right. And I hear this all the time, especially during application season. So how do I write a compelling personal statement? Okay, so the personal statement, just as it says, is to get personal. So you want to be able to tell a really good story about yourself, your life, your accomplishments, any tribulations you went through, how and why you got to where you are today, why you deserve to be in PA, why you deserve to get into PA school, what you bring to the table. So the most important thing is to start with a strong introduction, captivate the reader. I always tell students, they read like thousands and thousands of essays. So how are you going to stand out? I'm so sorry about that. How are you going to stand out? And what are you going to, like, what about yourself are you going to highlight to, get that phone call to come in for an interview? So a strong introduction, a memorable conclusion, make them want to just pick up the phone and call you. So a good essay would include why you chose medicine, why you chose PA, what was that defining moment, and then things you did and learned, things you did and lessons you learned along the way, like shadowing experience, work experience, volunteer experience, how that made you a better person, how that better prepares you for PA school. And then, of course, always end it by reminding them that you are an asset, that you deserve to be in their program, that they're gonna, get an amazing person when you get that acceptance. So always have those key points in your essay. All right. And how do I ask for a letter of recommendation? Another frequent question, especially during application season. So a letter of recommendation, of course, they always want at least one from a PA. And of course, you'll typically get that from a PA that you shadow or connect with. And when you do that, of course, when you're shadowing a PA, highlight your skills, show off. It's okay to be a show off then, because you want them to remember you. You want them to want to write you a letter of recommendation. But this is just from, any person that writes the recommendation. You want to, of course, build that rapport with the person. And if it's, if you're going to apply a year from now, you want to most importantly remain in contact, because, you're going to end up reaching out to them a year later. So you don't want to just randomly email or message them asking for a letter of recommendation. You want them to remember you. So, periodically send them emails, keep in contact with them, see how they're doing, tell them how you're doing in your journey. And I think those 3 points are a great way to confidently get a letter of recommendation. All right. Getting in with a poor GPA. So most schools want at least a 3.0 GPA. Of course, they want you to have, better than that. I think a 3.5 is considered competitive, but they want at least 3.0. But it's okay if you don't have that. The most important thing to do is to recognize where where you went wrong with the classes that you didn't do so well in. Retake some of those classes. Sometimes it's always good to do a post-bac or master's program. And even if that doesn't technically raise your GPA up too high, that just still makes you a more competitive applicant, and that you went the extra mile, you got this extra experience, and have another degree or certificate under your belt. And of course, always highlight your other strengths, even though academics may not be your strongest, but you may have like years and years of patient care experience. Highlight that you're, prepared to be in the medical field because you've been in the medical field. So, use your weakness as strengths. All right. The best time to apply. The best time to apply, of course, is always going to be when you are ready. CASPA opens every April of every year, and the application process is basically a a full year, basically like medical school. So you apply, and then you get an interview invite, and then you interview, and then you wait to get accepted. You get accepted, and you don't start PA school until the following year typically. But it's based on when that program starts, whether they start in the fall, summer, or spring. So if CASPA opens in April, the best time would be to apply. I typically say like the summer months, like May, June, July. I submitted my application August 31st. That's a little late, but August is still fine. But anything beyond August, I don't really recommend unless the school has a later start date, because I'm sure all of you know that a lot of schools do rolling admissions, which means that they do not wait until the deadline to start inviting and looking through applications, inviting people and looking through applications. They do it as they go. So as soon as CASPA opens, applications get submitted, they start looking through them, they start calling people for interview invites. So say you wait until like September or October to submit your application. By that time, I got accepted into PA school in October. So say they've already accepted like 15 people for 60 seats. By that time, they only have 45 seats left as compared to 60. So you're lowering your chances of getting in the later you apply. So apply early, make sure you're ready, make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's. All right. Advice for reapplicants. Of course, a lot of students are reapplicants. It's okay to not get accepted the first, second, or third time. Keep trying, remain persistent, don't give up, as I always say. Go over your application, see where you went wrong, see your pitfalls. If you know that is your GPA, work on your GPA. If you know that you don't have a lot of patient care hours, work on that. A lot of times I meet students that say, you know, they got an interview, but then they didn't get invited. So I always tell them, I think, you know, it's not necessarily your academics, but it could have been your interview skills, because they liked you enough to invite you, but then like something might have gone wrong during the interview. So I always tell them to work on your interview skills, practice. And of course, if you can, reach out to the schools to kind of get some advice on how you can be a stronger applicant. A lot of schools may not write back, but yeah, just keep going over your application, keep practicing your interviews, and it's gonna happen. If it's meant to happen, it will happen. And finally, question 10, paying for PA school. PA school is not cheap. I had about, I came out with about $80,000 in debt. It was like $10,000 a semester, and it was like 8 semesters. So I had to take out loans, and I took out the minimum. I literally took out like $10,000 a semester. So you're gonna have to take out loans. I'm seeing like a lot more scholarships now. There's a lot more scholarships since there's, you know, the PA profession, of course, more popular and more in demand. And there's a lot of organizations now that support PAs and create scholarships for them. So there's more scholarships, as I said. So you can get scholarships, and there's grants. There's different programs where, you know, if you work for a certain amount of time in like an underserved area, like 2 years, and they pay off a certain amount of your loans. So, you know, you're going to have to take out loans. It's inevitable unless you got it just to pay for it, but you're gonna have to take out loans. Just be strategic. You know, start planning financially, especially if you have a family and other responsibilities, which we all do. So start planning ahead of time how you're gonna pay for school, especially how you plan to pay off your loans, or if you do plan to pay off your loans. So yeah, just get ready for the loans. It's coming. But there's more options, as I said, with scholarships and grants. So, and you'll find out more information, or you can find out more on AAPA and on, of course, social media. So yeah, let me just get back on top. As I said, my name is, let me click this. Okay, Rodeline Joseph. My social media is Rodeline Joseph _ and at Medsembly, MEDSEMBLY. So that's about it. So I'm gonna stop screen sharing.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure we'll have a few questions. I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you. as we continue this conversation. Tell us a little bit about why you chose to go into emergency medicine as your profession and within the context of being a PA. Hello?
I'm sorry. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, I hear you now. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, no worries, no worries. I was just wondering, tell us a little bit about why you went into emergency medicine.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's funny because when I decided to, well, when I was in PA school, or I've just always wanted to be an OBGYN before that. So when I got to PA school, I was like, okay, I'm going to be an OBGYN PA. But and this is, like I said, all about learning about yourself. So during rotations, I found that like I hated OBGYN, not because like, mother, baby, whatnot, but I actually didn't like any rotation where I just kind of saw the same things every day. I don't know, I'm someone that I like adventure, I like learning, I love learning, constantly learning, and that's why I like the ER. I like the fact that I see different things every day. You never know what you're gonna get. One day you'll see, a bunch of cardiac cases or pulmonary. You never know what the complaint is gonna be, and you never stop learning. So that's why I chose emergency medicine.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And it is different every day, I'm sure.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah,
And this
you get higher skills.
And this is one of the things that I think is a misconception of many students, is that they see most PAs, and maybe it is true that most PAs are primary care, in primary care fields, but
Right.
PAs can specialize in a variety of different things, and depending on what their interests are, what they like, what their lifestyle to be like. So I'm assuming that you work, like 12-hour shifts for a certain number of days a week. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. And I like the flexibility of working in the ER because you work 10 to 12 hours a week. 10 to 12 hours a day. You only have to work like 12 to 14 shifts a month. So if you work, some ERs like 100 hours a month is considered full time.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
some ERs is 144 hours. So you only work like 12 days a month or 14 days, and it's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, what area of the country are you in?
Well, I live in Atlanta, but right now I'm in New York. I'm practicing in New York I'm doing a COVID assignment, and I've been in New York for almost 6 months now. It ends in the end of the month, the end of June. So yeah, I'm in New York right now.
Oh, that's awesome. But you typically live and practice in Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, how has COVID affected your role as a PA? I'm assuming that there's been some alteration to what you typically would do in your work. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. Yeah. So let me see. So in Georgia, I was doing emergency medicine and urgent care, and especially when COVID started, or probably in the summertime, it kind of basically became nothing but COVID patients. Like, we weren't seeing any other cases really, or complaints. Patients were just kind of coming in concerned for COVID, and it was a lot of COVID testing. So that's what like a lot of my work kind of became. And then and of course I always had that level of autonomy, and being that when COVID started, like, no one really knew anything about it. So we were basically learning as, the doctors and the attendings were learning, and we were able to work more cohesively to figure out, what is this disease? How are we going to treat it? How are we going to manage it with patients? So I was able to work closer with the doctors. That's one thing that changed. And even in New York, I noticed that too, being able to work closer with doctors on COVID cases, asking them questions, figuring out the care plan. And then the hospital I work at in New York, it specifically has the COVID area in the hospital strictly for stable COVID patients. So, and they typically have the PAs working in that area. The doctors don't really work in that area. So yeah.
Yeah. Now tell us a little bit about Medsembly. Tell us a little bit about your work there and what
Okay.
that's all about.
Yes, yes. So Medsembly is a platform that I started or working on. It's a networking platform I'm working on to basically bring together everybody in the medical profession under one platform, specifically create a more feasible way to connect students with healthcare professionals and have them, as I said, just under one platform, streamline that process. Like I said, one thing I noticed is that students have a hard time finding a shadow, finding a mentor, finding someone for a letter to write a letter of recommendation, someone to kind of guide them along the way. And that's what I really want to do with Medsembly, and just create a utopia, a medical utopia for everybody in the medical field. So it's not just PAs or doctors or nurses, but just everybody in medicine eventually.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That sounds well. Best luck with that. That sounds like an amazing effort. Very good, very good. I want to encourage our listeners and those in the room to ask questions of our guests. If you have any questions you would like to ask, I know that we've had several people coming in and out of the room here recently, and so what is it that you think students should most concentrate on when they're in their undergraduate years? I know that often we get students who ask, do I really concentrate on shadowing? Do I really concentrate on doing well in school? Do I really concentrate on this, that, and the other thing? What are your thoughts about what's really worthy of their focal point?
Okay, so I would say that it really depends where you are in school. So if you're just if you're a freshman and just starting college, then of course focus on acclimating and getting your grades together, as compared to junior and senior year, where you're more comfortable and you don't have as much as a heavy load, especially in senior year. I was probably basically a part-time student because I had all my credits my senior year. So you had more free time to do other things. So senior year would be the time that you want to, do more, shadowing and prepare yourself for PA school. Then you'll probably even have time to really start working and getting that patient care experience, whether it's being able to work part-time or full-time. So definitely the first half of your college years, really make sure your grades are on point. And then the latter half, when you're, more used to things and, getting everything ready for grad school, that's when, you can focus on, getting more volunteer work in and shadowing and working, doing outside work, outside of academia.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. I know that often we talk about students who are non-traditional students and are maybe career changers coming back, going, maybe they were an accountant or an engineer or a teacher or something, and they decided to go to PA school. What is your advice for those students who are just trying to figure out, what do I do first? What should I do first in terms of trying to figure out how I go about this? Any advice for those kind of students?
Yes, of course. I actually have a few of them that are non-traditional. I had one student that she was a banker and then decided to go to PA school, but she actually always wanted to be in medicine, but kind of ended up in banking. And that typically happens. Life happens, different things kind of lead you to one career, and then, it's never too late to make a career change. But of course, I always tell people to do research, connect with someone that's in the field that can help you and give you great advice and mentor you. And of course, discuss that with your family, because being that they're non-traditional, they're not like, younger adults that I would say don't typically have as great as responsibilities as older people or people that already had careers. So have that discussion with your family. Mentally prepare yourself, prepare your kids, your spouse for what's to come. Make sure that you have a great support system, and research your support system, getting your family actively involved in your education and getting that support from your family.
Yeah, great. That's great. One last question I'd like to ask, and is what of the classes that you took as an undergrad in preparation, prerequisite courses, maybe even courses that you took that weren't required, but you took them anyway in preparation for PA school, were there any particular courses that you felt like were super helpful when you got to PA school that students should really consider taking?
Yeah, you said the prereqs, like the core science classes? Okay, yeah. One of the most important classes that I took was microbiome and biology. Those are, because you take, I don't know if it's still the case, but microbiome, biology, and anatomy, physiology, of course. I can't forget anatomy, physiology.
Right.
My first semester of PA school, I had to take anatomy, physiology. And I actually took it in high school, and I didn't really remember much of it. But if you can, try to take it in college so it still sticks when you start PA school. But yeah, those classes, really, taking them will really prepare you for, for that in PA school, because it's very similar.
Yeah, very good, very good. Well, any last parting words for us, encouragement, whatever you'd like to say to students that are watching now and that will watch on the recorded version? Any last words of encouragement for us?
Of course, as I always say, never stop trying, never stop, reaching for your goals, remain persistent, work hard, stay, have that grit, have that natural grit and eagerness to learn and do better, and you'll get there. Nothing is unattainable. You can attain and be whatever you want to be, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't either.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. It's a real pleasure. Enjoy your time in New York. And are you in New York City, actually?
I'm in Brooklyn. So yeah,
in
that's
Brooklyn.
Considered New York City. Yeah, I'm living in Brooklyn.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, and be careful up there, and thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for joining us for National Pre-Med Day and for the PA track. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Good luck, everybody.